Please welcome to the stage the wonderful Keith Neves from Neves Creative. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
Take a seat. Okay. Oh, we've got the slides up as well. So you're going to love this guy. He's got so much to say about some really cool projects. Keith, there's going to be people here that don't know you. Give us a little bit of background about who you are and what you do.
My name is Keith Neves. I am a production designer, technical director, creative director. I work with a lot of agencies to help bring their visions to life through putting together CAD drawings, renderings. I help with a lot of production management. That's who I am.
Awesome. And you've got quite an interesting history as to like how your route to this industry came. And I'm sure there's lots of people in the AV industry that sort of came from things that they didn't expect. Like kind of, like I was a punk rock musician, and then that led me to AV. Tell us about how you got into AV.
Yeah, I got into lighting first, and I started in the early 90s in the rave market in San Francisco. So I did a lot of underground raves, did a lot of free work, learning about lighting, learning about electricity, kind of having free range about doing whatever we wanted to do. Programming was something that was easy inside a rave space, and just kind of learning the ins and outs of all there is to do in production.
And then how did that lead you into setting up Neves Creative?
Well, yeah, so from there I started a lighting company in San Francisco. I worked in lighting for many years in San Francisco doing nightclubs, worked with a company called Lumitech. And then from Lumitech, I just moved around in lighting and did a lot of Vectorworks drawings. And Vectorworks kind of led me to creating Neves Creative as agencies started asking me to produce drawings for their experiential projects.
Cool, so you kind of started, kind of in this kind of creative, free-spirited space, and that kind of led you into actually, oh wow, like now there's a business model here, I can start doing things.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it was interesting, like sitting around, family gatherings and people asking me what I did, and I said I did lighting, and they're like, "What is lighting? Like, how do you do lighting?"
Yeah, and so just tell us a little bit about you, because you touched on like you came from the rave industry. What was that like? And because obviously you look like a sophisticated gentleman now. Like what was the rave scene like when you got into it, and what were you like?
So the rave scene, I have become sophisticated over the days. I used to have purple hair and green hair, and my eyebrows were pierced, and I had earrings all up in my ears, and I went to a lot of raves and stayed up till the early morning.
The only reason I asked that, I know this sounds weird, hands up anyone here who came from a similar kind of creative field that led you into AV. Have you got any like ex-musicians here or anyone yet? There we go. Yeah. There's a lot of us, and it is it's something we don't talk about enough. Like, where do we come from? Because this is like a business conference, and there's there's money to be made here. There's a lot of commerce going on here, but actually, all of us are are creatives. So let's talk about some of the projects you worked on. Let's talk about the Google Pixel thing that you did at Kitchen.
That was a really exciting project. I worked with a company called VT Pro. I want to preface, all my projects are brought to me by agencies that I work with, and a lot of the design and stuff that was put together is a collaborative effort. It's never Neves Creative alone. Google Pixel was really a challenging project for me. It was at the Coachella Festival. It was brought to me as a rendering, no scale, no nothing. Hey, help us put this together. And from the rendering, I had to figure out all the truss architecture that was going to be used for the cladding. It was these two pyramids that kind of butted together, and it was a lot of fun. It was fully interactive, and it got a lot of people going. It had lines for the whole day for both weekends, and it was an amazing project. We got to use lasers, LED walls, audio experience, full-time coded lighting system.
So you talked about it was there was lots of people working on that project. It
Yeah.
was a collaboration, which is really important because we're in this age of collaboration at the moment. Where do you start on a production like that? From a production perspective, you said you were given these CAD drawings. How do you apply yourself on a task like that? Something that's a problem, I guess. How do you solve that problem?
Yeah, I think it for me, I ask a lot of questions, so I ask like, especially looking at a rendering that has no scale, maybe there's a person in there that gives me some suggestion of scale, but it's really then like, okay, how large do we think this is supposed to be? What's our timeline for development as well as what's our timeline for installation? What's our budget look like? Obviously, it was just, well, not obviously, but it was just a rendering of the exterior, so not understanding all the technology that was going to be put into it.
Yep.
So just asking those right questions, as many questions as possible, I always say. And then, I think one of the things that I always tell people is like, over the years, I meet a lot of people that do technical direction or production design and stuff like that, but it's really about like having the experience to ask the right questions and not be scared to ask questions, especially in those moments when you only get a few minutes or of time from each one of the stakeholders. So you just got to ask questions. There's no stupid questions, depending on who you ask. But it's and then just having the good sense and whereabouts to ask the right questions at the right time.
So it's really interesting you talk about like asking questions, because how long have you been in the industry now? It's like since the 90s, right?
Yeah, like 20, 30 years.
So you said like don't be afraid to ask questions. Like now, you feel empowered and confident enough to do that. What was young Keith like when he was first getting into that industry? How did you feel about asking those questions back then?
Well, the industry's changed a lot. When I first got into the industry, you needed to really have like a tough skin. Especially when you're first in the industry, you're gonna get really made fun of. You're gonna get like I said, everything's kind of changed.
Yeah.
But a lot of locker room talk and just kind of like putting you down. I remember a lot of that, like who's this kid? Who do you think you are?
Yep.
Kind of scenario. But you got to work through that, and you got to and I don't know if people have that now. I think most job environments that I've been working on are pretty open and transparent and easy to work in nowadays. And that kind of who is this guy kind of talk is kind of gone away a little bit.
Do we have any people that are quite new to this industry, quite new to the AV space? Anyone? Okay. Well, that question's out the window. But I think it's really important to discuss that, because it can be intimidating, particularly when you're working on these projects, because it's a small team, it's a big idea, there's a vision, but going from A to B to get to that vision takes stamina. You need to be focused. You need to kind of think. How have your production methods changed over that time? How have you refined your skill set?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of smart people, and they've taught me a lot about work ethic. You got to have a really strong work ethic. You got to know that other people are counting on you to deliver. So if you need an updated drawing in the morning so everybody can review it, then you need to stay up and do it, and otherwise you're letting the team down. It really is a team participation project all the way around. And there's lots of people on the teams that I never even know what they do. I just see them and I say, oh, I know that they're doing something, right? And things are getting done that are not in my periphery that make the entire event a success. But I think that over the years it's really about just always constantly learning from others, being humbled, all taking everybody's ideas into consideration, especially on a large project, and being quiet and listening is always good, and waiting for your time to speak, and not putting people's ideas down, but trying to elaborate and trying to help them if they don't fully have flushed out ideas, try to get them to move through those thoughts.
Awesome. And so you touched on something really interesting there about the importance of bringing calm to chaos. because sometimes these projects can be chaotic, because they're time sensitive, particularly if it's an event, you're on that continuum, leading up to the event, the design, the development, but then also the deployment. How do you bring calm to chaos? And how does that benefit the team and the client?
Yeah, I think calm is really important, when you're not calm and you're anxious or you're moving fast or you're quick-tempered, it shows to me personally, it shows a lack of understanding, and maybe you have some fear inside of you that is not letting the team flourish. And so I try to remain calm and focused, and I always know, I think there's other things too, is I'll be working on an event, and you're working with a young producer, and maybe they don't know how the lighting works, and they don't know how the video works, and they don't know how things. And so when they see, troubleshooting, or they see a problem, because there's always troubleshooting, there's always trying to figure things out. They get anxious, they get nervous, and I think for me, knowing that we got an hour, we got plenty of time to figure this out. This is nothing, and being able to be calm and know that you have smart people there, and you're working with smart people, and we're going to get through it. It just over, my whole career, we've always gotten through it. I've never walked into a situation where, oh my God, it's crazy, 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 and then we didn't get the video screen on, or we didn't get the lights to turn on, or we didn't get the artist to get on stage. We've had these problems, but then, you just sit and you go step by step, and you work through it. I remember a long time ago, a mentor, I'd be looking at a project as a master electrician and seeing 1,000 lights on a plot, and just being like, oh my God, I got to figure out how we're going to circuit all these, how we're going to channel all this. And he said, look, dude, we start one truss at a time, and we just go through it, so.
Awesome. So let's talk about more of your projects. What's been your most favourite or most proudest moment project-wise out of the projects you've worked on?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite projects is I work on the Spotify Best New Artist Grammy event. I've done it for 2 years. Oh, there we go. The mic went out. Do I yell? Oh, there you go. Cool. There we go.
Sorry about that, guys.
So the Spotify Grammy event is one of my favorite events. It's Best New Artist. We do all 10 artists, and it's a live event, and we have to work with all of the creative teams for the 10 nominated artists, and we have to put them on a rotating turntable, and it's like a A-list celebrity event, so there's a lot of celebrities in the audience, and we're just rotating this turntable within we got 5-10 minutes to switch the bands, get them on, as well as all the lead up to it. Working with Spotify directly to figure out the best lighting system. There's no video at all, it's just lighting and audio, and working with the creative teams for all the different artists to make sure that we're meeting their needs, and it's a really nice event to be working on.
So you said there's 8 different artists.
10
different artists, 10 different creative teams,
yeah.
10 different personalities.
Very much, yeah, all different music genres.
And so I guess there's, when you're communicating, how do you prepare yourself for a project like that?
It's the same way I say, to everything. It's everybody's, on these teams, they just want to do the best that they can. They're very creative. It's listening. It's being calm. It's being supportive. Being there to say, yeah, no problem. We can get those lights for you. At the end of the day, I'm not the person who says yes or no. I always say yes, and then we'll see what Spotify says. So, but yeah, I think it's just being there. And then the other thing is you're dealing with different people within that team. We end up dealing with sometimes the creative directors, and then a lot of times we're dealing with the tour managers or their technical team. And so when you speak the same language, when you can talk the same, you drop an audio console name, or you drop, oh, we're going to have an MA console, or we're going to have this, and we're going to have these lights, the calm comes to them, you know what I mean? Because I'm sure they're dealing with a lot of different venues and a lot of different personalities themselves as they're on the road, and they're now becoming these, bigger artists, and having to do shows from small spots now into bigger spots, and just having, I've been into plenty of venues where you work with the house, and it's hard, so they come first with this kind of we need you to help us and listen and give us what we want, right? Here's our writer, like, you know, and then as soon as you're like, yeah, you're gonna get this, you're gonna give me your console, you're gonna, and then it's okay.
Awesome. I mean, I think the key hashtag that we've got from these last 3 days, and you just kind of defined it there with what you just said there, is be the solution. When you're working on these big projects, is, you know, those 3 words will allow you to kind of succeed in that space, I'm assuming. Awesome, thank you for that. So, what are the current challenges within, from your perspective, within these events, these big kind of technological kind of visions that you're working on? What are the big challenges that you see, and how do you overcome them?
The biggest challenge I have right now is how much everything costs. Expenses are going up, and clients' budgets are going down. So it's kind of like a little ebb and flow right now. At the end of the year, I think we jumped off of the pandemic into like let's go, and you know there was a lot of challenges with that, especially new challenges. You know, finding labor that had experience, gear that was available. You know, and I think one of the things from that is that I have clients now. You know, we got into this lull pre-pandemic of like, you know, 2-3 weeks out, like asking AV companies for equipment. And now after, you know, this last year where people had like been like, hey, we don't have anything. People have been like, you know, 3-4 months out, like, hey, let's get this guy, let's make sure he's available. Let's get this gear, let's make sure it's available. So that, I think, yeah, the challenges are really just, you know, financial. And then every once in a while we run into just like, you know, finding quality labor. I think the way that we work in my industry in live events is that we rely on equipment houses to provide us quality equipment, and then we rely on finding ourselves a lot of like really amazing freelance leads that can do audio, that can do lighting, do video, and then we have a whole pool of, you know, labor from all these different labor companies that we bring in. If we have to work with Encore, if we have to work with whoever, just finding people that are actually dedicated to the job as a passion versus a paycheck.
Awesome. And is that changing? Is that pool of skilled people getting smaller? Is it growing? Like, what?
I think our industry is super easy to get into. So, you know, if you're looking for a check for a day's worth of work, you know, you can kind of show up at a lot of places, you know, because everyone needs help. So it's an ebb and flow. I mean, I think that there's, you know, in the last, you know, I think it's right now we're getting into summertime, so everyone's moving into festival world, and, you know, pre that everybody was in like conference world, and so. You know, it just ebbs and flows, I think, with labor. But when we did come right out of the pandemic, it was a struggle to find labor, just because there were so many events going on at the same time. It was just, I mean, everywhere around the world that I talked to, production companies, they were just like, we're just so busy.
And is that changing now? Is that starting to slow down?
Well, I think I think it is. I mean, I think the festival season's going pretty strong right now, so there's a lot of big festivals going on, and it'll be interesting to see how they all do. I think, you know, at the beginning when we first launched, everybody was really excited and got really big crowds. I think some of the promoters right now are a little, you know, they're just pulling back a little bit. You know, I wouldn't say that they're shutting down or anything like that. It's just that they're like, say, hey, instead of 10,000, can we make that 5,000?
Right, got you. Thanks so much for that. What advice would you have given yourself, now that you've been in the industry for a long time, if you met like a younger version of yourself in the industry, what advice would you give that person?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this to you earlier when we talked. It's really hard to determine the value that you have to a team, and so I think one of the things I would have done is really raised my rates a lot sooner than I did. Yeah, it's hard because you never know, and you got to be willing to lose clients, and you got to be like, you know, if you don't think I'm worth that's okay, but other people might, you know, and at the end of the day, you need just to understand where your position fits into that team as a whole. Like, you know, what could they do without you? What can't they do without you? and it's still hard to me right now to determine my rates, and a lot of times my rates are judged by what other people are willing to accept, or what other people I run into when I hire other people and they tell me how much they charge or whatever, and then but there's no book, there's no guide to say like, hey, this is how much you should charge.
And that's been like the holy grail since the dawn of time with regards to not just AV but any form of technology, like understanding how to impress the value of what you bring into the table is an art form. You mentioned that you wish you raised your rates now, back then. How is it for you now? I mean, obviously you've got a reputation now, so people, that's where the value is. How do you think, like, if there's people listening here who want to kind of make sure that they feel valued from a financial perspective, how do you manage that? You touched on, like, sometimes you kind of sidestep, say, well, actually, maybe this client doesn't see the value in what I'm doing, so I'll work with someone else. Like, how do you manage that?
I don't know how I manage that, actually. It's like I said, I take an average of what's going on out there, and I try to be holistic with it and say, not every project you're going to get the rate you want, but maybe the project's a lot funner for you, or maybe it's a portfolio builder, or maybe, you just understand that, like, say, there's a difference between doing a job for Pfizer and there's a difference, versus like a job for like a multimedia artist that's just trying to make a name for themselves, right? So like that person's like saying, hey Keith, I might get 100 people here and we're all gonna lose money, but it's gonna be really cool. And Pfizer's never gonna lose money, and they have more money than anybody. So like you got to be kind of judgmental on the project and the scale of it. So if you're doing something for a multi-billion-dollar international company versus doing something for like a solo artist, your rates will obviously change in that perspective. But I just try to be fair, and I always try to be the problem solver, somebody who can help bring the project together. Like that's really like my passion, is to like be that glue. A long time ago I worked for a project for Airbnb, and I did all the drawings for the entire event. So I did all the waste management, and I did all the rigging, and I did all the lighting and everything. And I'd get on these calls, and you have city officials, and you have you have the guys picking up trash. You have everybody on the call, and they're all, hey Keith, you need to put 6 trash cans there. Hey Keith, we need to put a pop-up tent there because they need shade. Hey Keith, we need to put stanchions here. Hey Keith, we need to put. And it's really like that tool for me is doing the drawings is the communication hub for the entire event. If you don't have good drawings, it's hard to communicate to everybody. And so like that's really my passion, is like putting that together so everyone goes, oh yeah, I see, I know what's going on.
Yeah, and having that kind of attitude also allows the client to see the value in you, and then when they value you, they work with you again. You work with them, they're happy with the service. Brilliant. Really appreciate that. Guys, you okay for some questions? Yeah? I'm sure we've got a couple of people that are excited and want to ask Keith some questions. Our wonderful Jessica, who's actually one of the producers of this show, by the way, and I think we should give her a little round of applause. She's kind of like a silent member of this. Jason's is going to throw this microphone to anyone that wants to speak. Anyone's got a question? Is anyone ready for this? Yes, okay, we've got a chap over there, alright. Yeah, okay. Well, anyway. What's your name and where are you from as well? Who's that?
Sure, hey, what's up? My name is Christian, I'm with LRAV right here in Orlando. And we do lots of live events, obviously incorporate everything that everybody else is doing. Question for you, Keith, with the last thing you just mentioned, which I love, right? Where do the trash cans go, where do the stanchions go, which are the things that don't necessarily pertain to the stage, but really are key to the event. Where's the boundary with the time limits, right? If you're getting all that information last minute, which I feel like nobody ever has dealt with last minute stuff here, right?
All of us.
So when that's coming in at you, right? Obviously it's priority, but what are the time frames that you generally try to work in for these larger projects like a festival?
Yeah, I don't have I have the time frame of like, things are due. We have deadlines, from when things need to be turned in for, city permitting and whatever we have going on. But my work ethic is pretty strong, so I I don't have a turn off time. So it's really about just completing the task that's at hand. I mean, if things get out of control, I do raise my voice, but for the most part, if I have to stay up till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock to get something done in a time frame to make sure it happens, it's good.
Well, and we all do that, I think, right? But at what point do you tell the client no? And that's the tough thing. I think all of us could agree it's hard. Obviously, if it's based on budget, that's easy. If it's based on time, hey, it's just impossible, fine. But at what point, when you're managing all the aspects of an event, you decide, hey, this really is kind of last minute, that's circumstantial on what item they're bringing to you, or is there?
Yeah, it's circumstantial, and then it's really me judging like how important is that to the overall success of the event. So if it's something that I deem mission critical, then I'm always going to jump in. But if it's like okay, like you don't need me to do that. Like I'll put a Sharpie on the plot and say, yeah, that goes there. That's good enough for that. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions? Oh, look, there's someone over there. Oh, it's my favourite lady. It's Danny.
Danny, I work for Lawrence Montana. You mentioned two things that I thought were really interesting. One is I should have raised my wages earlier, right? Know your own worth. But then also I have a really good work ethic. I work until 10 o'clock at night. Both of which can be barriers for equity of bringing in a more diverse team. How does your team find a way to manage around that to get more voices at the table?
To get more voices at the table for.
Like the production teams are more diverse, there's more people there that look different than everybody.
Oh yeah, so that usually comes down to finding a diverse team has been a challenge and has been a request from a lot of agencies. I've gotten a lot of requests for having POC, for having more women in our tech staff, and I end up going and talking to the vendors, be it the drape company, be it the lighting company, whoever, and putting that to them, saying, hey, the agency I'm working with has an equity and diversity initiative, and we'd like to see more people of color, we'd like to see more women, we'd like to see more trans, we'd like to see more people involved in the production. And I think that the challenge for most companies is at what level do you want those people if they're not experienced, and how do we get them to want to come into the industry to get the experience that's needed, I think is more of the question.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, especially with wage difference, and I've seen it, in my previous employer, where you can see the differences of how we're paying different groups and why it's harder for them to have that space.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good the agencies are coming through, but if you've got pressure you can put, try and bring that up.
Yeah, and I would say most of the producers that I work with are female, and then they come up to me and they say, hey, we'd like to be in a room that's not just a bunch of white men around us, if we can figure that out.
Awesome. I think we've got time for one more question. Anyone else? Come on, this is your chance to talk to Keith. He's the man. Here we go. No, we might as well do it.
Nobody else wants to. We can talk all day.
I think everyone wants to.
So again, from a live event space, right? I think Corman's pretty straightforward. But live events seem to be ever changing. Based on your current experience, right, the last 12 months or so, what do you think are the elements that are really coming to the forefront? People, obviously LED is a big deal. I feel like. What else would you say for creative?
Well, everybody's talking about AI. So everybody's trying to figure out how does AI play a space in live events. I've definitely had pitch decks that are coming across that are using, text to image, concepts, and how do we take those concepts and turn them into reality. I see a lot of people using ChatGPT for their resumes, for their bios. I just, I know that there's a big, there's a strike right now about making sure that AI is controlled within the film and television business. I did see a post recently where a person working on a commercial said that they finished the commercial using ChatGPT to write the script, and then another AI tool to do the voiceover. So I think those are kind of like the new things that people are trying to figure out. are there going to be AI tools that are going to be integrated into some of our drawing packages, like they are into, Adobe products right now and into Blender and things like that. So I think, more and more you'll see that technology probably coming through in more proposals and in more design and creative visions. We'll be using some sort of AI, even if it's not fully transparent.
Cool. Keith, it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
You enjoyed it?
Huh? I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was great.
Guys, let's make some noise for Keith. First session of the day. You put it in your pleasure.
Yeah.